You are listening to the Spactastic Mysteries podcast. We are continuing Anna Gale Lyne's first novel in the Jaguar and Peacock series, Who Killed Ben? Federal agent and seasoned SpaceVessel Commander, Jessa Strazzer, emerges from the wreckage of a devastating accident that claimed the life of her beloved husband, Ben. Returning to her duties with a heavy heart, she grapples with grief and unanswered questions, determined to uncover the truth behind the tragedy that shattered her world. As Jessa sifts through the remnants of her past life, she stumbles upon a mysterious box of items left behind by Ben. Within its depths lies a chilling revelation: the accident that claimed Ben's life was no mere mishap, but a deliberate act of sabotage. As they follow a trail of clues that leads them ever closer to the truth, Jessa and Nate find themselves confronting dark secrets and powerful adversaries hell-bent on keeping the truth buried. With danger lurking around every corner and time running out, they must race against the clock to expose the sinister forces at play before they become the next targets. This is episode 12, The Showdown. If you have not subscribed, do so now, and if you are on YouTube, hit the bell to be notified of new episodes.
Take all of these crates out of here, I instructed the team of agents assigned to help me. Then check the entire star vessel for any more RY-987. That could take days, maybe even weeks, protested one of the agents. I had seen him before, but I couldn't quite remember his name. It started with a D. David, Dirk, Daniel, that's it, Daniel. Agent Daniel Pepperton. That's what I am counting on, I said under my breath. To Pepperton, I gave him a sympathetic smile. We have to be thorough, Agent Pepperton. We don't want to expose any more people to this disease. Pepperton nodded to the rest of his team, gesturing for them to follow my directions. Returning to my quarters, I passed many crew members in the hall. Their excitement was mounting at the thought of spending a little randar at Space Station Charlie Delta Zulu. Even if it were only for a few days. Some walked hand in hand, engrossed in each other. Others walked alone with only the recesses of their minds to keep them company. Seeing the couples, I ached. For the last 2 hours, I had gone over the conversation with Nate in my head. I just couldn't figure out why I picked that fight with him. Did I need to do this on my own? To prove something to Nate? To myself? Was I having second thoughts about marrying Nate? Maybe it was still too soon. Or maybe I didn't want to admit that my feelings for Nate were stronger than I originally thought. Maybe I still felt I was betraying Ben. In my head, I knew that I wasn't disgracing Ben's memory by loving Nate. But my heart just couldn't see it that way. Moving into my quarters, I heard nothing. The place seemed so lifeless without Reggie and Joey's laughter and footsteps. I walked into my bedroom and changed from my fatigues into a red sweater and jeans. Bravo 8 could get extremely chilly this time of year. Not quite Alaska chilly, but definitely Minnesota chilly. I had put Reggie and Joey on a landing craft bound for Washington, D.C., a half hour ago. I couldn't help wondering if I made the right decision in sending them away. I wanted them close to me, to keep them safe. But I only seemed to put them in more danger. Grabbing a military-issued backpack from my closet, I made a mental list of what I needed to pack. I only planned on being gone a couple of days, but decided to pack enough clothes for a week, just in case. These things rarely went according to plan. Not wanting to arouse suspicion that I was a federal agent or associated with the Freedom Alliance, I packed neutral clothes, such as jeans, sweaters, long-sleeved blouses. Heading into the facilities, I filled a cosmetic bag with toiletries. With my clothes piled at the bottom of the backpack, I dropped the toiletries on top. Zipping it up, I threw it over my shoulder. Before walking out the doors, I went into the facilities again. I ran a brush through my hair, pulling it through a ponytail holder. I secured the left side of my hair with a bobby pin and then the right side. I walked into the living room to find Nate sitting on the couch, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. In his right hand, he clutched a duffel bag. He had his feet propped up on the coffee table. Glancing at my surprised expression, he asked, "Did you think I'd let you go without me?" I did think that I was old enough not to need a babysitter. Although secretly pleased that he was coming with me, I refused to let him know that. Determined, I marched to the doors, calling out to him, "I can't stop you from coming, but don't get in my way." That said, I disappeared into the hallway. I could hear Nate running to catch up with me. I smiled to myself as he fell in step with me. It was definitely going to be a long trip to Bravo 8. The silence in the landing craft was deafening. Neither of us spoke unless we had to. I kept myself occupied by studying a map of Bravo 8 on my Quan pad. I considered all the locations but couldn't really concentrate on them. I kept glancing over at Nate. I thought I caught him looking in my direction as well, but I couldn't be sure. He wore such a pained expression on his face that I wanted to reach for him. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't let him know how bad I felt about our fight. "We are approaching Bravo 8, Nate told me, looking at me for the first time. If pain had a face, it would be Nate's. His face was dark. His eyes filled with confusion. "That's good," I answered, wanting to say more but not knowing what. In strategic missions, I knew exactly what to do. But when it came to matters of the heart, I was clueless. The quicker we wrap this up, the better. I had been fortunate that Ben excelled in matters of the heart. Now with him gone, I felt like a blind person feeling my way through a maze. If only Ben was here. I clamped my eyes shut. If only Ben was here, I wouldn't be in this situation. If Ben were here, I wouldn't have fallen in love with Nate. I wouldn't have Nate staring at me right now. And I wouldn't have to start over. "Why, Ben? Why did you leave me?" I muttered under my breath. "What did you say?" Nate looked at me curiously. "Never mind," I grumbled, giving him a dismissive wave. The landing craft moved toward a bluish-green planet. Smaller in size than Earth. My heart beat faster as it came closer and closer. Bravo 8. What if I stopped myself from dwelling on what might happen? All you can do is be careful and come prepared, I reminded myself. I touched the bulge at the bottom of my pant leg to assure myself that my weapon was still there. After Nate thrust the landing craft down toward the planet, he carefully landed it in a wooded area, then he turned to me. "We need to talk. I don't have time to talk about this now." I pulled my gold chain out from under my sweater. Grabbing my wedding ring, I pried open the top of the diamond and pressed a button. When the button began to blink, I shut the diamond and shoved the ring and chain back under my sweater. Just in case there is trouble, Graham will know where to find us. Standing up, I threw my backpack onto the chair I just vacated. I sauntered over to the door and yanked it open. Looking around, I stepped off the landing craft. Nate, nipping at my heel. Glancing down at the Quan pad in my hand, I found our location on the map, then the position of the embassy compound. "The compound should be a mile north of us," I announced to no one in particular. I proceeded in that direction, wishing I had remembered to bring my cane. Searching the ground, I found a long tree limb that appeared strong enough to carry my weight. With it in hand, I continued toward the compound. Shading my eyes, I looked up at the sky. The sun was starting to retire for the night. The horizon was turning remarkable shades of red, yellow, and purple. It would be best for us to enter the embassy under the cloak of night. Our presence would be less noticeable, I reasoned. Once we arrived at the embassy, we crouched behind a large bush across from the entrance, waiting for a golden opportunity. We didn't have to wait long because a large line of people filed into the embassy. Perhaps a tour, I thought. Nate and I hurried to bring up the rear of the line. Inside, the embassy looked like every other embassy. Large rooms, linoleum flooring, a tall staircase leading upstairs, and people in suits and ties, catering to everyone's needs. I spied a set of French doors that led out to the quad. I slipped out them, sensing Nate's presence behind me. Luke Hayden decided we would meet at the compound. I contacted Luke to let him know we were coming. Climbing over the fence of the compound, I wondered if that had been a good idea. Someone could have intercepted the transmission. I found my way to the bench near the oak tree with the red ribbon tied around it, the rendezvous spot Luke and I chose. Patting my 9mm sidearm, I sat down. Nate hid behind the bushes in close proximity. Luke agreed to be there at exactly 6:30 to show me where the RY-987 laboratories were. I checked my watch. 6:29. Maybe something happened to him. Maybe he chickened out. Just then a man slipped into the seat next to me, draping his arm around my shoulders. "Long time, no see, Jessa," the familiar voice told me. He kissed my cheek. "Are you ready to see the labs, Jess?" I turned to look into the face of my first love, Luke Hayden. He had the bluest eyes I'd ever seen. "I am ready to put an end to this weapon, yes," I whispered. Digging my walking stick into the ground, I eased myself off the bench. My legs hurt from all the strenuous activity. Hurting or not, I was glad to be on the active list again. It sure beat being stuck at home, bored, with only soap operas and talk shows to keep me company. Only people bored with life watched those shows day in and day out, I surmised. I would rather be working any day. I walked over to the table in the lab. It was hard to tell in the illumination of the flashlight what the man was wearing. All I could make out was his small, cold, black eyes, his crooked nose, and his long face. I suspected him of being the fair-skinned, white-haired man with a British accent Ben saw discussing the RY-987 weapon. How did he know that? Running my eyes over my sweater and jeans, I couldn't fathom how he figured out that I was an agent. Someone told him, I decided. But who? Suddenly, a hand covered my mouth. Grabbing it with both my hands, I flipped him over my shoulder. As his head hit the dirt, I gasped. In the illumination of only the flashlight, I saw those blue eyes staring back at me. Luke. That's how they knew I was an agent. I pulled out my gun, pointing it at him. Kicking the gun out of my hand, he reached for his .44 and shot me in the leg. "This isn't over," I called out to them as they ran away. I tried to run after them but instead let out a blood-curdling scream. I felt a burning sensation in my leg, my hand now throbbed. I crawled to the door, inch by inch. Hopping would have only intensified the agony. I was fortunate the door was close, but those few feet seemed like several miles when on all fours. Picturing Reggie, Joey and Nate's faces gave me the strength to continue. I stopped every few inches to take a deep breath and rest. When I finally made it outside, I lifted myself up, using a nearby tree as a support. Feeling a cold object under my chin, I glanced down to see a knife poised at my neck. The pounding of both my hand and leg beat in my ears. I bit down hard on my lip. "What do you want?" I prompted. I tried to stay calm, but my heart raced, my palms sweated and my stomach knotted. "Drop the knife," I heard Nate say. I didn't dare look back. "I'll kill her, Fed, if you shoot," my attacker yelled. He tightened his grip on the handle of the knife. I needed to distract my attacker, thereby giving Nate enough time to apprehend him. Leaning in, I turned into the bend of the man's arm. I kept turning, pulling down on it. He fell on his back. Taking advantage of his position, I stomp-kicked his ribs. Nate grabbed the knife from him before the man could get up. After struggling with him, Nate managed to slap handcuffs on the man. Nate looked up at me. "We need to get you to a hospital right away. I've got to find Luke, our traitor." I looked around frantically. "Don't worry. I've got him," came a voice from behind me. I turned to see Sabrina Stetson with Luke in a headlock. His hands secured in the back with her handcuffs. I smiled weakly at Sabrina. Suddenly, my head started to spin. Everything went black as I slumped to the ground.